Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It's my honour to rise today to speak about amendments to the Electoral Boundaries Commission Act. The proposed amendments in Bill 7 would authorize the early appointment of an Electoral Boundaries Commission on or before October 31st, 2016, which is earlier than currently allowed under the Act, and clarify the Commission's authority to consider recent information respecting populations that's not collected on a province-wide basis, such as municipal population information. This information would be used along with the federal decennial census of population or more recent province-wide census. As mentioned, the first proposed amendment would allow early appointment of the Electoral Boundaries Commission. The Act's timelines for appointment of a commission are based on the assumption that general elections are held about every 4 years. The last election was held about a year earlier than anticipated. The current wording of the Act provides that a commission will be appointed during the first session of the legislature following every second general election after the appointment of the last commission. However, if fewer than 8 years have passed since the appointment of the last commission, the following commission is to be appointed no sooner than 8 years after that. As the commission was last appointed in July of 2009, and there have been 2 general elections since then. So the earliest the commission could be appointed is 8 years after that date. As such, the current wording of the Act, a commission cannot be appointed earlier than July 2017 and must be appointed no later than July of 2019. A commission needs to be appointed before July 2017, so there is sufficient time for it to do its work, to make its recommendations to this House, and to allow candidates to prepare for the next election. It is anticipated that the next general election will be held between March 1st and May 31st of 2019, as per the fixed election periods set out in the Elections Act. The Chief Electoral Officer recommends that the Commission be appointed in the fall of 2016. I will now explain why it's important to proceed with authorizing the early appointment of the Commission from a legal perspective. The Charter Right to Vote includes a guarantee of effective representation. Currently, Alberta has 87 electoral districts. The Act says the population of a proposed electoral division should be no more than 25% above or below the average population proposed for electoral divisions. There is an exception for 4 special electoral divisions, which have a population that is up to 50% below the average population. This exception is intended to deal with situations where the riding is extremely or unreasonably large, and certain other provisions laid out in the legislation. The 25% deviation from average population is intended to be rare and not the norm. The early appointment of the Commission will give it time to consider the population of the electoral divisions and protect that right. So with respect to the Commission's use of population information, the second proposed amendment would clarify a current section of the Act dealing with information that the Commission must and may use when determining the population of Alberta. The Act says the Commission must use the population information in the federal census carried out every 10 years, the decennial census. However, if there is a more recent province-wide census, such as one that's carried out every 5 years, the Commission must use that population information. However, the Act does not explicitly state that the Commission may use population information which is collected not on a province-wide basis, such as municipal population information censuses conducted by individual municipalities. The proposed amendment clarifies this authority, but does not represent a change in policy. The last Electoral Boundaries Commission used municipal census data and found it helpful in their determinations. Madam Speaker, these amendments are important to protecting Albertans' right to effective representation, and I ask for support on these amendments. At this time, I would like to adjourn debate on this issue.